braces that I put on the inside of the top are now sealed away to where they'll never be seen again. I'll do the trimming of the top to match the body, and after that recut, if you can see it, the groove for the binding in the new top. It all started innocently. I needed a router bit to cut the channel for the binding, so I went to StuMac, a reliable source, typed binding router bit into their search bar, and this came up. Well, it didn't look exactly like what I remembered, but it said piloted router bit for binding. Cool. I did a little more looking around, but basically everything kept leading me back to this, so okay, I ordered it. Now, instead of a real router bit, like one of these, which is something like what I was expecting, this is what I got. This was not right. This was not what I had in mind. So I sent them an email. And it turns out that this little bugger is for a moto tool. Well, that's not what it says on the web page. But anyway, the guy said, oh, what you need is this adapter which will let you use it with your regular router. So I ordered that. Alright, now I can stick this little thing in it and stick this whole assembly in the chuck in my router. Fine. I still didn't like the way it looked, but okay, what I was looking for was something with a ball bearing on top of it, like this. But I wasn't finding it, so I had this. Next step, install it in the router and give it a shot. I did a lot of test runs on a lot of assorted boards, and it worked. So I put the guitar on it. I still didn't like it, but up to this point it did seem like it was doing what it was supposed to do. Now it was right here. You can see little specks of dark brown wood coming out of it. This is not what was supposed to be happening. And what was happening was, while I wasn't noticing, that damn little tool was slipping up out of that stupid adapter. Now what I actually had was a channel almost a ½ inch deep, where it was supposed to be only deep enough for the new binding. Now this initially looked like it was not repairable. I mean, the wood is gone. So it took a lot of head scratching. This is after I've already done a whole lot of repair work to it. And I've used wood filler to fill in and essentially start over. So the first idea I came up with in the way of trying to rescue it was that essentially the original wood was ruined, and the only way to salvage it would be to put a veneer on it. So I bought some Koa veneer. And it's really pretty stuff. But still, it was not going to be the original 50-year-old wood, and I didn't like the idea at all. So after a whole lot of head scratching and study, I came up with a different idea. This, by the way, is half of the original mold that I actually made the guitar in back in '64. And I sliced some strips out of that Koa veneer and laminated them together, 2 thicknesses, and then molded them to shape the body of the guitar. As it turns out, the new koa is substantially lighter in color than the original. So it's actually giving a contrast. And when that's paired up with the white binding, it actually looks pretty decent. For a glimpse of how it'll look with the finish on it, I just rubbed it down with a little mineral spirits, and you can see the old koa gets substantially darker. The new koa stays more of a honey color. And the more I look at it, the more I kind of like it. Again, adding the white and leaving that contrasting strip between the two, I think it's going to work. And it's an alternative to putting veneer on it and covering up the wood that is not replaceable. For the record, what I eventually found and ordered, buried in StewMac's catalog, was this. That's what I wanted in the first place. But no. As with everything else about this project, it's just slow and easy. I've taped this down once already to make sure I got the fit right. And to trim both ends of it so they wind up exactly on the center line of the guitar. And now to try to keep from getting glue everywhere, I'm gluing it a little bit at a time. Like this. And there you have it. This will sit overnight, and then I'll do the other side of it tomorrow. And then clean it up, see how it looks. Well, the new wood is on, sanded flush, and it actually looks pretty decent. Next trick is to try again to cut the channel in here for the binding, which is what I was trying to do before all of this happened. We shall see. Now, using a proper cutter this time, I'm starting cutting at 2/10 of an inch. I'm keeping it below the 1/4 inch that I want, and I'll work up from there as I see how it goes. Now the next cute trick is installing the binding. which is about 5 feet long, and which of course has to be cut before I install it to the exact right length so it goes all the way around and meets at the other end. Rots of rock. So the next day, I guess you'd call this the unboxing, where we open it up and see what's inside. And there it is. It still needs to be cleaned up and sanded flush, but it's another step towards looking a little more like a real guitar. And after some cleanup and sanding flush, it looks a little bit more respectable. And the wood trim under the binding even looks pretty decent. At least now, if you didn't know better, you'd think it was intentional. I can live with that. Next project, aligning and installing the neck, making it look more and more like a guitar. And setting the neck is what determines the scale length, the action, and a whole lot of other variables that have to be done before I glue it on. Now I'm using a precision scientific instrument called a piece of string to check all of these things. One of them is the centering of the neck on the center line of the guitar. The angle left to right, I can check it from a string location to the peg on the bridge and verify that the whole neck is on center. I can also check on the actual center line and make sure. Now I've got that about as good as it gets. So the next thing is setting the angle up and down, which determines the action, the height of the bridge saddle, and a whole bunch of other kind of important things. Now to do all of this and setting the action, I put the neck on, I check it, I take the neck back off, and I put shims under it to change the angle, and I put it all back on and I check it again. And this goes on until eventually the piece of string, which represents a guitar string, is about at the right height off of the fretboard. So then I know how much of a shim I need to put in here to change the angle of it, and also over here how tall the bridge saddle has to be, which was still an unknown up to this point. I'm gaining on it.